Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on back. In this one today, we're going to be talking about the failure that is Vanguard Zombies. Now for this one, it's going to be a top 5 style video on pretty much the 5 things that I think are big key features as to why Vanguard Zombies failed. As everyone already knows, Vanguard is by far one of, if not the worst when it comes to Treyarch and non-Treyarch zombie modes. It's just really bad when it comes to just gameplay, storyline, everything in general. And for this video, it's going to be the top 5 reasons as to why it is like that. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Now for our first big reason, this is going to be going down to horrible promotion. Now what I mean by this is the trailers and all the information that we got before the game even came out. First of all, if you look at the trailers back right now for the promotion of this game, they're pretty laughable. Most of the things that they're talking about in those trailers just have nothing to do with zombies whatsoever, and they're trying to find little things to promote the game in a positive manner when they literally just can't. They're talking about things like sight lines and how the ruins are a super special thing that they're adding in, when in reality they just aren't. They tried to make these things seem really important and something that the players can latch onto and have a good time with, when in reality they just really aren't whatsoever. Which brings us into our next point when it comes to promotion, the fact that people figured out that there would be no round-based zombie map before the game even came out, which is really bad on Treyarch's point of end, because everybody knows that zombies is mainly about the round-based style gameplay, where you kill all the zombies on round 1 and it exponentially gets harder the more you go throughout the rounds. That wasn't going to be in this game, and a lot of people were starting to freak out because they knew it was going to be another Outbreak style game mode. Now, to Treyarch's defense in this situation, Outbreak did really well when it came to Cold War. 50% of all Zombies players were playing Outbreak during the time it was at its peak during Cold War Zombies, which was really controversial to Treyarch because a lot of people wanted to just keep the normal round-based system, but Treyarch saw that this Outbreak mode had a lot of potential. But to counteract any of their points, the only reason that people were playing Outbreak during that time was because it was a lot easier to get crystals and level up weapons on Outbreak compared to the normal Zombies round-based mode. So a lot of people naturally just went to Outbreak so that they can grind more crystals to upgrade all their equipment, to upgrade their perks, instead of actually playing it because they enjoyed it. Now, I will say Outbreak isn't really that bad of a game mode. In my opinion, it's one of, if not the best, when it comes to side game modes in Zombies. But to replace the round-based game mode specifically just for Outbreak, it's a little bit controversial and a little bit outrageous on Treyarch's end, and a lot of people didn't really like that. I will say in terms of promotion, there was some positive features that came with Vanguard Zombies, like the actual images and the graphic fidelity in the trailers. It looked really clean and it looked really cool with all the demonic things that were going on. Looked really cool for a Zombies game mode. Unfortunately, with all the gameplay features and things that they promised to add in, it didn't really catch people's attention, so it kind of failed from the start in terms of gameplay features. So definitely really bad when it came to the promotion. Now, moving into our second reason as to why Vanguard failed, this is going to be the lack of content overall. When Vanguard released, there was no ray gun, no pack-a-punch camo, no door buys, and no wall weapons. 4 things that are very huge staples when it comes to normal Treyarch and just normal zombie game modes in general were missing from this game on launch. This made the community really upset because core features that were in World at War, Nocturne, and Toten were missing from this game. Every single game since World at War has had the ray gun, has had wall buys, has had a pack-a-punch camo, has had normal things that everyone knows and loves. And in Vanguard, it was just taken out completely. What made it even worse was that they tried to promote this later on as new content. They added in pack-a-punch camos and said, oh, well, it's just new content, so you guys just have to accept it for what it is. When in reality, it should have been there on launch. It was in Cold War Zombies, and they literally just could have ported it over from Cold War Zombies into Vanguard. It's the same pack-a-punch system. And what made it worse was that they changed the points for the pack-a-punch as well. I don't know why they did that. There was a lot of questionable things that came with the content that was released in this game. And since there was no new wonder weapon in Vanguard Zombies, everyone was forced to use the same boring shotgun, playing the same boring Outbreak little game modes. And in this game, they were a lot worse because at least in Outbreak and Cold War, you had a lot of variety when it came to the missions and things that you can do. In Vanguard Zombies, it's just one linear direction that you always go through, and they lock out the map, which limits the content and limits the map layouts entirely. entirely. Overall, the content that's in Vanguard was really bad, and overall just sad. There was little to nothing on the launch of the game. They did eventually add all this content later throughout the season, but at that point it was already too late and just felt like a lame excuse to add in content that should have been there on launch. So for that, definitely really bad when it came to the content on Vanguard. Now, coming in for our third reason, we have the fact that there is a lot of reused assets when it comes to Vanguard Zombies. Now, to be fair, there are a lot of other games out there that do use a lot of reused assets. Like, for example, World at War took a lot of the map layouts and map ideas from the campaign in World at War, and they just implemented them over into the actual Zombies mode. A lot of games did that, but it's sad to see that there's a lot of reused assets that were carried over to Vanguard, especially when it comes to Cold War. There was a lot of reused assets that were carried over from Cold War, like the perk systems and how they did the perk upgrades and whatnot. And then Vanguard made it a little bit worse by making it to where you can only upgrade the perks in-game, which is really petty of them to do that, especially when it came to most of the other perks in that game. There was little to none, and then the ones that you could buy didn't really do too many effects, and you were easily able to buy them for free, which just didn't make sense, and it didn't feel like Zombies in that way. And when it comes to these specialist weapons as well, that was another feature that was just carried over from Vanguard. They literally just copy and pasted all the abilities of the special abilities and effects that were in Cold War, and then they just copied them over into Vanguard. They didn't change anything about them. They didn't add anything unique. When you look at other Zombies games, there are a lot of reused assets, especially when it comes to World at War and the maps that were made on World at War, especially when it comes to Black Ops 1 and the maps and the guns that are carried over from the multiplayer and from the campaign. But there's always something that Treyarch adds in different when it comes to each Zombies iteration. With Black Ops 3, for example, they added in Gobblegums, which was completely different, completely new, and completely refreshing. With Vanguard, there's just nothing. They did add a new system where you do have different kind of upgrade trees. It was unique for a couple of days, but I forgot what it was called. That's how little I care about it now. And when you look at the map Duran Fong, the on-disc map that's supposed to give the first impression for Vanguard Zombies, it's just multiplayer maps smashed in with Shinonuma. None of it makes sense, none of it feels right, none of it feels original either, and they locked off certain parts of those maps, so you can't even have the full experience that's already reused, so it just doesn't make sense in my opinion. Definitely really bad when it comes to the reused assets in Vanguard. Granted, there are other games out there that are guilty of reusing assets from different kind of aspects like campaign or multiplayer, but Vanguard definitely overtakes it when it comes to reusing assets from other games and from its own game. Now, coming in for our fourth reason as to why Vanguard failed, this is going to be the lack of overall post-launch content. Now, Vanguard did originally launch and it was in a bad state. A lot of people said that there had to be a lot of work to be done in order to make this a decent Zombies mode. And a lot of creators came out like Milo and they said that this game could be decent in about a year when they do get all this stuff fleshed out. Well, now we're at the end of Vanguard's cycle and not much has really changed. I mean, they did add 3 new maps, I guess you can say. They added Terra Maledicta, which wasn't really that good, but it was better than Duran Fong because at least it was original. They did have some annoying aspects like this new Margwa boss that seemed really cool with the trailers and everything, but like I said, when it came to promotion, didn't really come out to be that cool. And then they also added in Shinonuma Reborn, which I will give them some credit for. It was an okay experience from what I've seen. But other than that, they did go back and added Terra Maledicta again, but then they added, get this, a green tint. Yes, the map is now green, you can play it, and it's just the same experience with the boss fight, and now it's green. So, I mean, in terms of content, they didn't really add much in terms of other zombie games as well. When you look at Cold War, both of these games are priced at the same amount, but Cold War has Outbreak and 4 survival maps that you can play on. When you look at Vanguard, they have Duran Fong, Terra Maledicta twice, and then Shinonuma Reborn. It's less experiences, and those experiences that are on there are either reused from previous games or reused from Vanguard itself when it comes to the multiplayer. So overall, in terms of just post-launch content, they didn't add in much. And I think the big reason as to why there wasn't much post-launch content was because they were trying to fix the issues that were originally there on launch, like trying to add in the ray gun, trying to add in pack-a-punch camos, and that set them back for failure, especially when it came to making this game a lot better for the future. And I don't fully blame blame Treyarch when it comes to the lack of post-launch content, because they did openly come out and say multiple times that they did struggle a lot when it comes to making post-launch content in this game, because it's an entirely new engine. They had to completely start from scratch. They couldn't carry aspects over from previous games unless it was really recent like Cold War. So for that, I do give them a little bit of a pass, but it's still unexcusable with the post-launch content that we got in this game. And coming in for our fifth and last reason as to why Vanguard failed, this is not only just a problem when it comes to Vanguard zombies, but a problem when it comes to Call of Duty zombies as a whole. And it's the lack of communication from Treyarch and the developers. Now, I won't fully blame Treyarch for this because it is a little bit of Activision's fault. They do have a rule policy, I think, where they're not allowed to talk too much about the game, which does kind of suck and it seems a little bit sketchy. But from a business standpoint, I do kind of understand that. If we move away from the video game and the business side of video games for a minute, and we just look at the normal stuff that happens here on YouTube or any social media platform, the way that people avoid being canceled is that they just ignore the situation that they're being canceled for. Like, there's a lot of situations where people just don't talk about stuff and it eventually just gets forgotten, similar to the video game space like factions in BO4. But overall, I would say that this is still a major issue when it comes to Treyarch and Activision. And yes, I do understand from a business standpoint, it's a lot easier to just not talk about anything to avoid the criticism, because there's a lot to criticize when it comes to Call of Duty, but it still isn't good because then you're ignoring all the positive things that you're talking about and all the positive things that you're going to release. Like with Shinonuma Reborn, they did actually have a lot of communication with the release of that game. This is when they started talking about the struggles with the new engine that they're working with and how it's really hard to make new zombie maps on this new engine that they have to work with, which then everyone understood and they gave them a little bit of flack for Vanguard. I still don't fully for Vanguard, but at that point in time, Vanguard seemed a little bit more positive than where it's at right now. And when you look at other games like Black Ops 4, they had little to no promotion for the good maps like Dead of the Night. Everyone thought that Dead of the Night was a horrible map when it came out, and it was due to the bad promotion behind it. So when you are releasing something positive, back it up with positive outlooks and make good trailers around that game before it even comes out. Like Black Ops 3, for example, we had so many trailers before Horizon Drac came out, and it hyped up everyone, and it became the most successful map, in my opinion, ever. When it comes to just players playing on it, when it comes to content creation as well, that was a super successful time, and it was due to the promotion, and it was due to Treyarch communicating and allowing the community to talk about the game. Overall, as it stands right now, Vanguard is definitely the worst when it comes to Treyarch zombies, and I don't think that's going to be changing for a while. The bar was literally set on the floor for this game. People had really low expectations and were literally hiding their expectations because they didn't want another Black Ops 4 to happen. Then the game came out, and it still couldn't meet their expectations, even though they were set incredibly low. But I don't want to be completely pessimistic and just say that the zombies community is dead and that zombies is dying like everyone else is saying, because if anything, I think it's going to be the exact opposite for the future. Treyarch has made the worst zombies mode to date, and everyone can definitively agree that Vanguard is the worst zombies mode ever. And Treyarch has been working really hard in terms of just trying to figure out how to work with the Modern Warfare 2019 engine. So in the future, it's only going to get better in my opinion. Anyways, guys, that's going to wrap up this video for today. If you did enjoy, leave a like, subscribe, do all that. Leave your comments down below if you want to see me do any other type of content. Check out the Comfy Cushion Reacts channel. Link in the description for that. And yeah, I got nothing much else to say, so peace.